G'day guys and gal, it's Raven Week baby. In honor of that, I want to present a video I've been meaning to make for months now, but you know, it wasn't Raven Week. How Corvus Corax should and maybe will return to the setting of Warhammer 40k. Corvus definitely flies under the radar a bit. But if you've read a bit of his lore, you'd realize how much of a badass he truly is. Another thing I love about him is that despite his actual ability to fly, he is actually super grounded, with Corvus presenting as a mighty and legendary warrior, but not invincible like how it feels when you read about Sanguinius or Angron or Vulcan. This dude ate shit and he ate it hard, almost dying like 10 times during the Horus Heresy and not even to enemy Primarchs. But it ain't about how you get knocked down, it's how you get back up and then continue to be an invisible human blender that rips traitors a new asshole. Yes, Corvus can use his invisibility mid-battle, and yes, he has done it, and yes, it's as terrifying for the enemy as you would imagine. But our man in black has been MIA for quite some time now, so that begs the question, how should he return to the setting when he inevitably does? Before we get started, the limited sale for the Ravenlord Traitor Hunter continues. For those that don't know, I worked with quite literally one of, if not the best 3D miniature modeler in the world to create a model that is not only extremely detailed, but also has perfect tabletop proportions and styling. Often those mega detailed models just end up being shit at the small scale, but not this bad boy. He comes with a custom base, 2 head variants in case you want to scare the shit out of your enemy, as well as an accusing pointing finger, letting someone know that they're about to die. The neat part is that he comes in 4 different scales. The first scale is tabletop, making him tower above most enemies, but still be in line with other similar models. Then there is the 75mm art scale, for those of you that are more interested in the painting side and want the details to just be a little bit bigger. Then there is the epic 112 scale, a project piece unto itself. Painting this will really stand out in your collection. Then for the freaks of you out there that like self-harm while also being awesome, there is the 1/6 scale, weighing multiple kilos and being all around fucking massive. The model will only be available for a few more days or even less if it sells out. And that will be that. No STL release, no re-release, gone. So if you want to get this model, this is quite literally your only chance. We've already pre-printed and packed hundreds of these bad boys, so the fulfillment time will be very quick. Link is below. Today we'll go over how I believe Corvus should return to the setting. This could also act as my predictions video. I'll also provide context on where Corvus might have been for the past 10,000 years. Also, mega shout out to Alex Christie for this fucking obscenely great thumbnail art. I've been sitting on it for a while and I've used it in a few times in other videos, but was saving it for this one. I've literally seen people screenshot and crop those videos in low res just to try share and have this image. That does bring up a small note though. I'm happy for you guys to share and use these artworks. After all, I commissioned them for the community. But they do take a lot of effort for Alex and I am quite literally paying for them and producing them. So please at least credit Alex when you share them, and if you're feeling nice, then maybe credit me as well. It's just a bit cooked when I see someone post one of me and Alex's artworks without credit, rack up thousands of likes because the art is sick, but then either they or people in the comments start shit talking about me while complimenting the artwork. Like bruh, even if you don't like me, at least respect all this sick as fuck art I'm getting made for the community. As always, high-res version is available to download for free on my Patreon. Let's get into it. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of everyone's favourite avian emo's return, where has Corvus been? Well, let's go back to the end of the Heresy to try find some clues. Corvus, above all other loyalist Primarchs, had realised that he and his brothers were creatures of the warp. He saw himself as tainted and was extremely hard on himself, especially when the Raptor project was sabotaged by the Alpha Legion and he ended up with 1,000 or so mutated as fuck Raven Guard. Although this was purely due to Alpha Legion sabotage, Corvus felt responsible, especially since some of the Raptor Marines had Raven-like mutations, like beaks and claws and shit. He actually nearly killed himself during the Heresy, not in like a sad Linkin Park way. He basically just suicide charged an entire Traitor Marine army and he killed a few hundred before being wounded. Then he had a realization that being an emo was cringe, and then it wasn't up to him to choose his death. However, that didn't make him any less depressed, especially when he had to mercy kill all the remaining Raptor Marines after the Heresy due to their mutations getting progressively worse. The saddest part is that when he entered their cages to put them down one by one, a task he undertook personally, they were comforted by his presence and actually huddled close to him. He personally embraced each one before then breaking their necks. This act broke something in Corvus, who spent a year in solitude before seeking absolution. He left his legion behind and he entered into the Eye of Terror by himself, hell-bent on revenge against the traitors who had caused him so much pain. Now this would be a suicide mission for anyone else, even other loyalist Primarchs, but with Corvus understanding his true nature, it actually buffed him. He allowed his inner warp powers to emerge, gaining new abilities. Many people think he became a loyalist warp demon, but that just isn't the case, although it wouldn't be inaccurate to describe Corvus as a shadowy nightmare bird demon thingo. Just like how the lion can now forest walk, Corvus's natural abilities had evolved. As I've said before, all Primarchs were evolving and becoming more powerful the older they got and the more they embraced their power. Sanguinius got slapped pretty hard by Kabunda at the start of the heresy, but by the siege, Kabunda was Sanguinius' bitch, with the angel then proceeding to spank Angron straight after and almost then killing Horus, something that would have been unfeasible a few years prior. Corvus could now become a living shadow. In this shade form, he could literally absorb bolt shells, shoot black lightning, could grow to 18 feet tall, and yeah, he was pretty horrific. He traveled to a wordbearer demon world in the Eye of Terror and just began massacring the legionnaires like they were children. They genuinely all shat the bed and were terrified, with one of them begging Lorgar to come save them. Lorgar, intrigued, went through a portal and arrived on this world to confront Corvus, with Lorgar himself confirming that Corvus was not a demon, merely a Primarch who had accepted the warp and used it to empower himself. The two Primarchs clashed, Demon Lord vs Shade Monster Corvus, with the shockwave of the clash knocking the surviving wordbearers off their feet. Lorgar was confident because, you know, he's a demon, but Corvus smacked the shit out of him anyway, causing Lorgar and his surviving wordbearers to sprint back into the portal and seal it, as Corvus turned into a flock of shadow demon ravens and chased them. Lorgar was like, fuck this, and then proceeded to seal himself in his own tower for 10,000 years, while Corvus screamed that he would hunt Lorgar and his sons to the end of time. One Corvus line that stands out is, "I have your scent now, Lorgar." So yeah, it's not often that a demon Primarch is the victim in a horror movie, but there you go. That was the last sighting we've had of Corvus, nothing since then. This means that although he is still likely in the Eye of Terror, he hasn't been doing a crazy amount of damage, as that would have been remarked upon in the lore. His ability to not only go invisible, but to also become a literal shadow monster also would make catching him nearly impossible. Time also works differently in the Eye of Terror. For real space, it's been 10,000 years, but that could have only been a few centuries for Corvus, which would make more sense as opposed to him literally hunting wordbearers for 10,000 years. There would be like none left. Most people theorize that Corvus is circling Lorgar's tower like a shark circling a kill, with Lorgar not leaving his tower because he doesn't want to get eaten. That's what we know, so how should he return? Well, generally, loyalist Primarchs return when the Imperium is in great need, and suffers a pretty big L. For Guilliman, Cadia fell and the Great Rift opened. For the Lion, Angron became unstoppable, and Abaddon and Vashtor succeeded in their Arcs of Omen campaign. So for Corvus, something serious would have to happen. Likely something to do with Lorgar. The Wordbearers are one of the most united and powerful Chaos Legions. Their mastery of demons and sorcery is second only to the Thousand Sons, with their numbers being pretty large. With Guilliman tied up with the Necrons and the Tyranids, and the Lion still getting his bearings and trying to help Imperium Nihilus, Lorgar and his legion coming out of the Great Rift and ripping a path to terror could be spicy as. A warpath towards the throne world, hundreds of thousands of traitor legionnaires in tow from multiple traitor legions, not to mention the millions of demons and cultists they would have as well. Guilliman would get word of this and beeline to try intercept, but it wouldn't be looking good. To try spare the throne world from a massive battle and siege, Trajan Valorous would lead a force of Custodes, Imperial Fists, and Solar Auxilia to intercept Lorgar's fleet in one of the systems next to Terra, allowing the Custodes to have a full-scale engagement. Lorgar would be a mastermind, having spent all those years meditating and looking into the strands of fate. He would get Abaddon and the Black Legion to intercept the Lion and stop the Dark Angels from intervening, in itself creating an awesome showdown, with him welcoming Guilliman into a trap to finally end their feud once and for all. Guilliman would arrive in system as Lorgar and his host fought the Custodes and their forces. Guilliman would lead a teleportation strike on Lorgar's flagship. G-Man would reach the bridge, but it would be a trap. Corferon, Erebus, and many Dark Apostles, not to mention a bunch of demons, would be waiting. A vicious fight would ensue. In the meantime, Lorgar would arrive on the surface of the planet to enact a bloody ritual that would corrupt the world and make it a demon world, with the intention of catching and killing the custodian hosts in the ritual. Valorous, Valerian, Alar, and other custodian heroes would fight like legends of old, but they would be unable to reach Lorgar. Then Lorgar would get a report. A single Raven Guard ship had entered the system and had dropped a force of 100 or so Raven Guard on the planet. He would dismiss the report, unexpected but inconsequential. His anxiety would momentarily spike due to the trauma of Corvus, but he would quell it, continuing the ritual. But then a new report. The 100 Raven Guard had somehow torn through the Wordbearer flank, killing thousands, and were beelining to Lorgar. Lorgar would then hear the shadows begin to chatter, louder and louder. He would make out words, distorted at first, but then becoming clearer and clearer. "I have your scent, Lorgar. You will die screaming." Lorgar would freak, ceasing his ritual and initiating withdrawal to orbit. The chaos of the sudden change of tide causing a lot of Wordbearers to be slain by the onslaught of the Custodian Guard and the living shadows tearing through his force's flank. To Lorgar's added dismay, Guilliman would fight through the ambush. He had grown much mightier since their last encounter with Lorgar, with the flaming sword of the Emperor in his hand. G-Man has fought Magnus and Mortarion since his return. A couple of bitch-ass Wordbearers weren't shit. Erebus escaped from Guilliman's wrath, but Corferon, that kiddly-fiddling bitch, is finally slain. Gilliman punching out his heart and then for good measure, stomping his brains out, learning from his last encounter with Corferon where the bastard managed to survive. Lorgar's flagship was lost, but he still had his two Abyss-class battleships, the Blessed Lady and the Tresagan. He boarded the Tresagan and began burning it towards the nearest warp jump point, but just before he could take his first breath of relief, a warning klaxon chimed. Unidentified intrusion. At a blinding speed, an entity was tearing its way through the bridge of the ship. All that the pic feed showed was a hurricane of shadow and destruction ripping up and down the corridors. Within seconds, the sealed door to the bridge began buckling, as an immense force was smashing itself over and over against it. It would almost sound like rain, kinda like 1,000 beaks hitting the door. Lorgar says, "Fuck this," and he begins tearing open a portal into the warp with his bare hands. Erebus stands next to his Primarch, ready to follow, but Lorgar says, "No, my son. You must face your destiny here and slay that monster." Erebus pales and says, "But my lord." "No, Erebus. You will face this monster and you will triumph. You are the hand of destiny, are you not?" Erebus nods, his face like stone, hiding his terror underneath. Lorgar tears the portal open and enters as the bridge door explodes outwards. The last thing he hears is a screech of rage and one sentence, "Lorgar, I have come for you." With his prize denied, Corvus takes out his rage upon the bridge, slaughtering the wordbearers and mortal crew like dogs. Erebus takes out his Athame knife and attempts to cut open a portal with it, but for the first time in his long life, the knife fails him. The shadows laugh mockingly as Erebus realizes he is the only one left. He frantically slices at the air over and over, but still nothing. The shadows circle and whisper, "There is no escape," as they close around Erebus. All Erebus can do is scream as he proceeds to endure the most horrific, drawn-out death that any living creature has ever experienced in all of Warhammer. His body is torn apart with surgical precision. Corvus uses his warp power to augment time. What takes only a moment in real space takes a century for Erebus. His body is torn apart and crushed back together over and over, kept alive through Corvus's pure hatred. From here, the story can continue however it should. Corvus reuniting with his Raven Guard, speaking to Gilliman and maybe even the Lion. However, I think he should remain mostly secret from the Imperium. Lorgar would also continue this war, still with one of his mighty Abyss-class ships intact, while creating sorceries and artifacts that can be used on the Raven Guard Primarch. Who knows, maybe we can even bring Nakonai Sharakin back at the same time, since I'm actually pretty sure he's still alive somewhere. It may make the setting seem crowded, but there are so many threats everywhere that adding the Wordbearers and Corvus back wouldn't take away. I mean, just look how fun the Horus Heresy was, and there was way more Primarchs. But that's just my 2 cents. Comment below how you'd like to see the Raven Lord pop back into the setting. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Raven Lord Trader Hunter. Only available for 1 week with limited stock, so if you want this bad boy, now is your only chance. Hit the subscribe button and the real subscribe button for more shadowy content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.